Yes, it looks like we're good to go.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will get started. Welcome to our CPI meeting. Thanks for joining today. Just to let you know a little bit about our CPI, the CPI stands for Committee for Parent Involvement. And we just partner with the Indian Hills administration to share ideas, coordinate events, and different projects that benefit the school. So happy to have you today. And I will pass it over to Dr. Christensen to introduce himself and the guest speakers for the day.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Shane Christensen, the principal here at Indian Hills. I have with me the both of the counselors from Indian Hills, Mr. Joe Rich and Mrs. Lindsay Cunningham. So you can probably see them both there. And I think Mr. Rich is going to start by just kind of talking through the registration process for 7th to 8th and 8th to 9th. And then Mrs. Cunningham and I will help as needed, and we'll be able to answer any of your questions that you have, really for 6th to 7th, 7th to 8th, or 8th to 9th. Among the three of us, we should be able to answer your question. So Mr. Rich, I'll let you take over.
All right, well, I'll start by talking, like the next 2 weeks is real heavy in the registration process and course selection process. And that's designed purposefully so that it all kind of revolves around when we have conferences going on. So you have an opportunity to talk to teachers and ask questions if you need. This week, as in today and tomorrow, all of our 8th graders are working on selecting courses. And then next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, it'll be 7th graders' turn. So there are several different ways that we're providing this information. One is on the Canvas pages that in the classes where the students are doing this. So our 8th graders are doing this in their math class, so it's all on their Canvas page for math. I've also sent an email to students. An individualized email went out to every 8th grade student yesterday right after school. In that email has the link for everything that they're going to need, everything that's on the Canvas page. It also contains a personalized math recommendation for what they need to take next year. For the most part, it's just the next in the sequence of math that they're taking. So pretty straightforward, but it kind of helps clean that up. And really, we've had to adjust this year what we're doing to meet the needs of our online learners as well as our in-person learners. So we try to move things more computer-based. And so far, there's a lot of good has come out of it. We've been able to simplify things in certain areas and I think make things more inclusive. Next week, I will do this exact same thing for 7th to 8th graders. In advance of doing that, I'm sending out an email to parents saying, hey, this email is coming. Watch for it in your students' email inbox. Make sure that they don't delete this so that they have this material. So there'll be a parent email that has some of this information as well. So basically what kids are doing for registration is in class. And for, like I said, for 8th graders, it's today and tomorrow in math classes. For 7th graders, they're going to do it in their science classes on Tuesday and Wednesday. So they will watch a video that kind of explains all the processes of choosing classes. While they're doing that, they're recording their choices in a Google form. So basically it's like a survey. So as you go through the form, do you want this class or that class? If you want this class, it'll kind of lead you to some more questions and you can kind of indicate some of your choices. With things changing throughout the year as we plan for next year, we may have to come back and grab some additional information later on, but this should get us what we need to get started. 7th to 8th graders, in that personalized email that comes out that they will be using to help do their classes, select their classes, will be recommendations on advanced classes for next year. So we have science, social studies, and English, and I can talk more about these specific classes a little later on. But those classes, kids have the option of doing an advanced class next year. So we've had teachers go through and kind of based on the information they're seeing this year, make a pretty general recommendation for what they should consider taking next year. Students can opt out of that recommendation and take something other than what's recommended for each one of those classes. And there's questions about that in there, but we want to provide that in an email for the kids so they can see this is what I'm recommended for. and this is what I'm going to sign up for. Do I understand if I'm changing that recommendation or vice versa? So the other thing that we're really pushing that I'm telling parents in the email I'm sending to them as well as kids, that's something that kids and parents need to sit down together and view. Like I said, during the actual registration part that's in class, kids are going to fill out that form and they're going to submit it while they're in class. So a seventh grader will select all the classes that they want while they're in that class and hit submit. Now, after that class is done, as soon as they click submit, they get an email in return that says, here's all the choices that you took. Here's what you selected for your classes. That's the email I want them to go back through with parents. You can click on that link at any time and go in and make changes. So it's really when I say the kids are turning in their choices during class, it's like their first draft. It establishes their choices in there so that they can go back with parents and make edits after they've kind of talked through that stuff. It also gives, the reason we're, like I said, we're doing it on Tuesday and Wednesday is then when you're meeting in conferences, you can talk to teachers about, hey, we're thinking about, they were recommended for the advanced class, we're thinking about not doing the advanced class, what's the pros and cons or vice versa, and just getting some input that way. And again, you can always go back and make those changes. So the students will put in a draft. We absolutely want them and need them to go over those choices with their parents and then make any necessary adjustments. So it'll all be electronic. It'll all be on that form. The video that I have that will show kids how to do that, I'm going to make that available to parents. The other place that's a one-stop shop for all of this is the counseling website, which I'm going to show you here. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick just to show this. Oh, I can't share my screen. It looks like that's disabled. But if you go to, I'll put it in the chat. I will put the link.
Give me the link. I'll share it for you, Mr. Rich. Or it's your Weebly?
Yeah, ihcounseling.weebly.com. And I'm going to hit it. I just put it in the chat if anybody wants to copy that down or go there and link. You can see there, it's the top part of that says information for current 7th graders, followed by current information for current 8th graders. The 8th grade stuff is on there and it's live. So the 7th grade stuff, you'll see it says check back soon. I haven't put those links in yet. I'm having to redo one of the videos on there. So you'll be able to get back there next week and take a look at all that stuff. So the videos that students are watching that explain how to do this, parents will have access to that and can get the information firsthand. There you go. So yeah, if you scroll down, so there's right there where it says check back soon, those will be links. You can see on the 8th grade right there, where it says registration Google form. That's the actual form where kids go in and put their choices. You have to have, I believe, a West Des Moines account to get into that. And again, whenever it records the student email. So anytime you go back there, it's going to say you've already completed this. Do you want to edit your choices? So kids can get right back in there. That registration presentation on there, that's the video that the 8th graders are watching to get 9th grade information. So you can get it straight from the source. After they watch that video, same thing that I'm going to do with the 7th graders. After they watch that video, we go live in a Zoom and we take student questions and help them figure it out that way. I'm actually going to be located up by this science classroom so I can pop between the classrooms for the kids that are in person and answer questions. But I'll also be on the computer doing this so I can ask any questions that way. So this is how we're getting information out to you. I can talk specifically about the 7th to 8th grade registration and the advanced classes that are offered, just to kind of touch base on that. Before I do that, are there any questions specifically about this information and how we're going about this? Okay, if there are, you can throw them in the chat or interrupt me and I'll go back. So picking 8th grade classes, let's start there. So students will be, will have a few electives that they can choose from in there, and we'll go through all of that in that video. They'll also be indicating if they want to do advanced classes for science, social studies, and English. Now the math is a different beast. That kind of continues along the same sequence of courses that they're currently in. But for the others, it's an opt-in from parents and students. I'm going to first talk about advanced social studies and advanced English. there's a question about what's the timeline for making these decisions. That link will be open for a week after we have it there. So you can go in and make edits for a week. But even after that link is no longer up to make those choices, you can always email me and we can make adjustments. So it'll be May before we're actually putting kids into classes for next year. So there's lots of time to make adjustments. If you ever have any problem getting in, just email me or call me directly and I can make those changes for you. But going back to the advanced classes, so English and social studies. Both of those classes for the advanced section, they cover the same topics and sequence and standards that are in the regular English and social studies classes. So when you take those, you're going more in depth and while you're covering the same stuff, it's going to go deeper into the curriculum. Those are just for regular 8th grade credit, and they're both separate from anything that you're going to do in 9th grade. So if you do not do advanced English or social studies in 8th grade, you can still choose to do the advanced track in 9th grade and vice versa. If you maybe start by doing the advanced class in 8th grade, say, you know what, the advanced track isn't for me in English, I'm going to switch and do the regular track in 9th grade. Those are interchangeable. The one that's different that can get confusing and is a little bit more high stakes is the science class. A few years ago, they redid the science curriculum, and now it is an advanced class and it's also a compressed class. So they've combined the normal. If you're taking the regular track, you would take 8th grade science followed by 9th grade physical science. What they've done now for 8th grade advanced science is they combine that 8th grade regular class with 9th grade physical science. So it's a more advanced version and you're covering 2 years of science within 1 year. Because you're covering 9th grade physical science standards, you get high school credit for that. And I'm going to circle back around to what that means in a second. If you take what the science class that you take in 8th grade is also going to determine what you take in 9th grade. So if you're doing advanced 8th grade science, you're going to go on to advanced biology in 9th grade. Now it's possible to take the advanced 8th grade class and then take physical science in 9th grade, but that would be like repeating a class. So if you went through there and decided that you didn't want to go on to advanced biology, you'd be essentially repeating physical science, 9th grade physical science. Because those physical science standards are a requirement, you're not really able to go from regular 8th grade science into advanced biology because you miss that physical science, those physical science requirements and standards that you'd have in 8th grade. Now, a lot of times when people hear that the 8th grade science class is for high school credit, that sounds like, hey, that's a good thing, that's a no-brainer, that's something that I want. There's a potential downfall to that, which is because it's for high school credit, it's going to impact your high school GPA. So knowing that that's the most difficult of our 3 advanced classes, you also need to realize that if you don't do as well as you want to in that class, you're going to be starting your 9th grade year with a lower GPA than your peers who did not take that. Okay, so that GPA will factor all the way through you're a senior in high school and you're applying for scholarships in colleges. So it will impact that. If students go on to take, like if a student does that advanced class in 8th grade for science and decides, I don't like the grade I got, decides to take physical science in 9th grade, they're actually 2 different courses. So that physical science, that 8th grade advanced course still shows up on there with that grade on that transcript. So there are some, when you're deciding on that science class, there are some risks. And so you kind of have to, if you're uncertain between the advanced classes, it's the social studies and English that come along with the less risk, and science is a little bit more high stakes. So that's why we recommend strongly talking to teachers about those recommendations and knowing what you're getting into before you decide to make those choices. Dr. C, what am I forgetting on this? What do I need to hit?
You probably said this, but I'm just going to restate it. When you take the advanced physical science in 8th grade, you're getting 8th grade standards and 9th grade standards. And you're also saying you're going to take the advanced biology class, which has compressed 9th grade and 10th grade standards. So the 2 classes go together. Now you can, if you don't do well on the advanced physical science in 8th grade, you can always retake ninth grade physical science. But again, like Mr. Rich said, they're not the same class. So it's just something for you to think about. The other part that people maybe don't understand is that you can still get to every science class at Valley High School, whether you do this or not. You can still get to biology, advanced chemistry, every science class. I mean, once you're past ninth grade, you can take whatever you want. So it's just really people that want to try to get biology done a little bit sooner and open up some additional science classes. But otherwise, you can take every science class you want. You can take more than one in a year. There's a couple things in the chat, Mr. Rich, if you.
I saw that. I'll go back. Do we, what's the timeline for making decisions? Do we get the link in email? So that if you mean the link for the IH counseling website, I think I put that in the email to 8th grade parents. I'm like 99% positive. I could go back and look, and I do plan on putting that in the link that's going to go out to 7th grade parents. Is also in the announcements. It's going to be in the school announcements. The link will be in for the next week or so. As for health in 9th grade, that's a question that I don't know off the top of my head. It's buried in that video, and I lost it, but I can find out. So health is a new requirement for high school. They strongly encourage you to take it in 9th grade. They are offering an online version next year. And the reason I don't have the answer just yet is because they were kicking around some different ideas and I never heard where they landed. The high school is looking at doing things a little bit different with PE. And instead of having it be an every other day class, they're looking at having it as an everyday class for just half the year for the semester. So you can put things like speech opposite. Before we're done here, I'll scoot over here and look at the registration form and see if it describes that on there. So I'll come back to that one. As far as online, yes, for the health, I believe that would be a class that you would do. They would not schedule it into a period. Now, some of the other online classes that they have at the high school they actually schedule into a part of your school day. But those are, especially with the online health, are kind of designed so you can do that on your own outside of the school day to free up room for kids, specifically who have things like they're wanting to do multiple music classes and just trying to fit them into the school day where everything fits. That was one of the things that took a hit when they put that health class in every other day opposite of PE. It made it hard for Southwood Singers and the jazz band kids to try and fit everything in there. All right, I just missed the chat here. Let me go back here for a second. The subjects that students take in high school affect the college you want. So there are, each college will have different entrance requirements. If you're looking at Iowa, Iowa State, and UNI, what you're going to notice is that their entrance requirements are very similar to the graduation requirements at Valley. Now, one of the things that we do early in November in 8th grade is we go over some of the 4-year planning and talk about some of the different pathways. It's hard to answer the question about what colleges want because every college is different. One of the most common questions that I get that gets very easily confused is about foreign language. So I might as well cover that now. There is no foreign language requirement to graduate from high school. So kids don't have to take any world languages. We begin offering Spanish in 8th grade, and then in 9th grade that expands to, I think they have Spanish, Chinese, Latin, French, German? German, all right. So they've got those 5 choices once they get to 9th grade. The general rule of thumb is a lot of colleges, not all of them, a lot of colleges want some sort of foreign language, world language as an entrance requirement. So the general rule of thumb is if you do 2 years of a world language in high school, you should be pretty well covered to meet the entrance requirements of any college you're going to. Iowa and Iowa State, I get Iowa State and UNI confused there, but Iowa and Iowa State, I believe, require that you have 2 years as an entrance requirement to get in. However, before you finish in Iowa, you have to have 4 years. For Iowa State, it's 3 years before you finish college. And for you and I don't think you have to have any to get in, but you have to have 3 by the time you're out. Now, if you do all of those while you're in high school, then you don't have to take them while you're in college. Here's the catch though. If you, a lot of these colleges, and like at Drake, for instance, let me give you Drake as an example. They don't require any foreign language while you're there to get in. So it's kind of up to that college. That's why that 2 years is a general rule of thumb. But if you go to a college that says we want 2 years, like let's say I'm going to go to Iowa, we want you to have 2 years of foreign language as an entrance requirement. If I took that in 8th grade and 9th grade, or if I took it in 9th grade and 10th grade, and then I stop, I might get to Iowa and they say, great, we're going to let you in. But to start college, we're going to test you, see where you're at, and we're going to place you there. And you're still going to have to get through that 4th year of that world language. So maybe I took it in high school and I met my entrance requirement, but now I have to go back and retake those classes because I've forgotten it all. So we suggest that if you're going to do a world language, that you back it up to the end of high school so that it's fresh in case you go on. Now, the exception to that is pretty much anywhere you go. If you do 4 years of a foreign language, a world language, you're going to meet the requirement. So I've called Iowa and they've said, yeah, if you've taken 4 years, we're not going to make you take a test. You've met your requirement. You're not going to need to take any more while you're here. So if you're planning on doing 4 years or even 5 years, that's the other reason to start in 8th grade is to do 5 years of a world language so you can get to that AP Spanish when you're a 12th grader and get college credit for it. That's the other reason to do it. Now, Dr. Christensen has a little bit different experience, I think, with South Dakota State University, home of the Jackrabbits. So I'll let him talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my son took 4 years of Chinese. My other son took 3 years of Chinese. But when he got to school, he was able to take a test for college credit. So that he could have up to 15 credits from taking the test at the end of his, coming into his freshman year. And so he could basically get a minor in Chinese by taking the test out. So you just have to think, that's why we really think the students should take it their senior year, their junior year, and then you need to decide how many years they're going to take. But finish with a world language that you're going to take a test in when you go to college, because you want to be able to test out of as much world language as you can. It's a little harder at the college level.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the big questions about kind of looking forward to college is one of the things that could impact you. I had several friends who didn't do the 4 years I went to Iowa. I had several friends that didn't do it while they're in high school and had to take it at community college. I have another close friend right now who had 3.5 years in college and then quit, was at Iowa, and then worst case scenario happened. In order to graduate on time, she had to go to Iowa State. And I don't want that to happen to any of you guys. So be looking at, that's the kind of thing to be looking ahead on that. All right. I've talked about advanced classes for the 8th grade. Trying to think of other things that I usually touch on during this. Shane, what else do we need to hit here?
I think you did a really nice job, Mr. Rich. If there's any questions, and then also we have Mrs. Cunningham here. She knows both of our counselors do everything, but for purposes of transition, Mrs. Cunningham does from 6th to 7th, and Mr. Rich from 7th to 8th, and then they kind of partner in that 8th to 9th. So if you have any questions 6 to 7 for Mrs. Cunningham, or any questions for any transition, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, we're here to help you. I see PE waivers. We really don't have PE waivers in junior high. PE waivers are more of a high school thing, where if your schedule is full, they'll waive PE. I think they're actually going to do online PE now, where it won't even be waived. It will just be an online class you do outside of school moving forward, because it's been so successful. Some of our online students now do have online PE that's outside the day. They can exercise and turn in and show that they've met the requirements for PE. So we're getting creative with that. Next year, we are offering a new PE class for 7th and 8th graders. So it's called Fundamentals of Training. So students can sign up for this class or regular PE or Fundamentals of Training, which will count as their PE credit. The Fundamentals of Training, I don't know if you want to talk about it, Mr. Rich, but Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to go back while you were talking. I went back and I looked to answer a previous question. It does look like the health class is at Southwoods. They are still offering it every other day for the full year. It looks like from what I'm gathering here on the sheet. So the strength and here, give me a second on the strength and conditioning, because I had Mr. Sinram kind of help me out with an explanation. So buy me some time, Shane. Do some dancing or something to buy me some time here.
I would sing a little song, but I'm not sure you'd want to hear.
Nope, you can stop.
There might be people jumping off the Zoom.
All right.
Go
ahead.
I just have a question about, someone mentioned the PE waiver, and then you mentioned the possibility of it going online, doing online PE. I just feel bad. Like, my daughter's schedule is going to be pretty full with choir and orchestra and PE/GT and then Spanish. I want her to take Spanish. And with all the other classes, she can't do something fun like drama or, she's online 7th grader right now. So she's missing industrial tech, hands-on stuff. I mean, she did things at home, but in terms of being in the lab and, using anything. And so I just wondered, will that be a possibility that she could do PE online and then take out that, I don't know, so that she could maybe do one of the other fun activities?
Not at this time in 7th and 8th grade. There isn't a PE waiver, but there is 9 through 12, and there are certain circumstances by which they allow that to happen. So we do know it makes students have to make choices, and we really don't like students have to make choices, but unfortunately, that's kind of the boat we're in. So there's something that we'll have to give a little bit.
Okay. So I thought you said something about online. That's
for 9-12.
Okay.
Yeah, but come and talk with us come and talk with Mr. Rich or Mrs. Cunningham. We'll give you all the options that we have available.
Going back to that strength intro to training, I believe is where we landed on the name for the new PE class. So we're kind of building up to the program that's offered at the high school. The course is designed to work on mobility, flexibility, core strength, stability, agility, plyometrics, and general strength for injury prevention. So lots of ilities in there. The idea is at the high school level, I think the perception has been in the past that this is really targeted just for athletes, or that a lot of times that who ends up taking it. But that's not what we're going for here. This is open for all students, and it's really an intro to some of those personal fitness goal kind of things where they're working, like I said, on the flexibility and general strength training and kind of getting an intro to that, as opposed to the more traditional PE where they're working on games and team games and some individual fitness, but that would be the main idea of this PE class. And we're unsure how many sections of this we're going to offer because we're unsure of what the interest level is going to be from kids. So this is going to be kind of a trial and error for this first year, trying to figure out how to make this all work and how to grow this program. Biggest adjustment for 7th to 8th graders. I would say generally they're very similar in how they're run. So I wouldn't say that there is a big learning curve from 7th to 8th grade. The one area where it changes is some of those advanced classes. Some of those kids that take those advanced classes, they're designed to be challenging, right? For the first time, some of these kids might kind of run into that wall of, things have been pretty easy for me. I've been able to get through this without too much stress, without having to work too hard at this. And now they're pushed up something that's going to challenge them. And sometimes that can cause a little anxiety in there as far as, sometimes it's just personal ego as far as school's always been easy. Now I'm struggling at this. And that's a very good thing. That's exactly what it's supposed to be. But sometimes kids take that and internalize it as, well, suddenly I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough. So those are conversations that I have, and I joke about this, but it's the truth. A lot of times through that first series of conferences, I'll have a parent and a kid in my office, and they'll say, I'm the only one in this advanced class that doesn't get it. I'm not smart enough. Everybody's smarter than me. And then they go out and the next person comes in and says the same thing. I've got a line of everybody saying it's only me, right? So that's really kind of the only adjustment for some of our kids that elect to take those advanced classes for the first time in 8th grade.
And then also there's a lot of activities that open up in 8th grade. So they might have been doing sports later in the night or music later in the night, but now they're going from school right into some co-curricular band or orchestra or choir, and then maybe going to a volleyball or basketball or volleyball or football practice. And we want kids to be able to do all these things. And oh no, here comes drama. So I'm going to do that on top of it. So we'll have kids doing all of those things, and we try to allow them and figure out a way for them to do all of those things. So the time management piece is a great practice opportunity in 8th grade, because in 9th grade, whatever you decide a student really wants to focus on is going to be pretty time intensive, because they do take students to high levels.
Yeah, I'll let Dr. C talk about the differences in curriculum, but I'll hit that one up there. Is it recommended or required to stay in GT program from 8th grade into high school? It is not. If you're identified in the GT program and you don't take it in 7th or 8th grade, you can always jump back in later on. Same thing. Like if you take 9th grade off, you can always jump back in your 10th grade year. I encourage kids and parents to view that as any other elective and kind of weigh out your priorities. I'll have kids that'll come to me, hey, I really want to do this class and that class, and I've got all these music classes I want to get in, and I've got GT, which one, and I prioritize them out. Especially when it comes to band and orchestra, those are not classes that easily lend themselves to taking time off and then jumping back in. So for instrumental music, I really strongly encourage kids to stick with that. Especially in 8th grade going into 9th grade, where once you get into high school, it really opens up all sorts of different opportunities for those students. So that's the other thing to kind of think about when making those choices. What can I jump back into? Or if I don't get that this year, can I get that later on? And what classes do I need to stay in? Because if I don't, it's kind of the end of the road for me. Then Shane, I'll let you talk about the curriculum.
I'm missing the question. I need to talk about curriculum.
It says, could you share some specific differences between the curriculum and workload of the advanced English and social studies?
Oh, okay. So the advanced classes, advanced English and social studies, they're the same standards as regular English and social studies, but they should go in more depth. The goal is not to have more homework, but to have a different type of homework. And so in English, they might be reading 2 different novels. The advanced English will have a novel that's a little higher reading level. The writing will be different between the two. In advanced English, there's more writing and writing at a higher level. Same with advanced social studies. They're going to do more DBQs, which are document-based questions. And that's where they use primary and secondary resources to use evidence, textual evidence, to make a claim and then support it. And so they'll do more of those at a higher level, because if students head into AP, any AP classes, they need to be able to write at very high levels. And that's probably the hardest jump, is whenever they go from advanced classes, either in 8th grade or in 9th grade, into AP classes. It is a jump, and it is a year of adjustment of learning how to do well at it. And so it's hard for almost every student. But that's what we're not really looking for more homework. We're looking for a different quality of homework, or a different type of homework is probably the best way to say it. Advanced physical science is its own class altogether, not different standards. So we've already talked enough about that. And then whatever math class you have, there's a little more homework. So we try to say 10 minutes of homework for every grade level. So a 7th grader should have 70 minutes on average of homework, and an 8th grader should have 80 minutes of homework on average. The way we're doing block classes right now, a lot of students should be getting work done as they're walking out, and they shouldn't have a great deal, but they should have some. We also struggle more and more with kids doing homework, and then the class isn't ready to move on. And we do the best we can with that. But anyway, that's kind of, I don't know if I've answered the question, but that's where there is a jump up in 8th grade. There is definitely a jump from 7th to 8th, and students have to figure out how to adjust to that, and they have to become more accountable for their own learning. So students who might be interested in the honors program at Valley, they would want to be in all 4 advanced classes. So they would want to be in algebra or geometry in 8th grade, and the advanced English, advanced social studies, and advanced physical science. In 9th grade, they would continue on with those classes, which would be an AP Human Geography for social studies. There's an advanced Lit and Comp in 9th grade. And anyway, you take all 4 at the same level in the 9th grade. And then at 10th grade, that's when you jump into an honors pathway. The honors pathway can be one pathway, or it can be all of them. So you can decide to go all 4 subjects, or you could say, hey, I'm only going to go with science. And you also, then there's other pathways that open up, like art. One of my sons did the art AP pathway. So there's several different types of pathways besides the 4 core subjects that students can go into. And I would just encourage you to look at those. You can go to the curriculum guide for the high school, and it walks through the honors program.
Shane, I'm going to tag on a little bit of that if I can. Just to clarify for some folks that might not be familiar with the honors pathway program. So there is something called an honors diploma that you can earn at Valley. And that's kind of what Dr. C was referring to. To do that, it's a very prescribed group of courses that you take throughout high school, starting with all 4 advanced classes in 9th grade. There is an honors seminar that you have to take along with that. You have to take 4 years of a world language. And so a lot of kids will in 9th grade will say, well, I'm going to do the honors diploma. But really, by the time it gets to graduation, very few kids end up doing that. We're talking like half a dozen, maybe per year or less. And the reason for that, first of all, it's a difficult pathway to follow, but that's not the only reason that there's not very many people taking it. It is very, very prescribed. So a kid that wants to be in multiple music classes may not be able to fit those in with those schedule that the honors program, because they've got to take so many prescribed electives with the foreign language and some of those other things. So what kids find out is, as they get in there, I am more interested in, I'm kind of finding my specialty, my area, whether it's science or math or a combination of those, or it's music, or it's industrial tech, or it's business. And so what Shane kind of alluded to there, in any one of those areas or multiple areas, you can, what do they call it, Shane? Is it path of distinction, or what do they call it? I forget the terminology. It's slipping my memory right now.
The scholar.
Yeah, the scholar program. So you can kind of pick and choose, and more kids kind of find, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to go into. This is what I want to pursue. So they tend to follow that. It doesn't mean it's less rigorous by any stretch of the imagination. It's just more specialized. So by taking all the advanced classes in 9th grade, you certainly set yourself up for choice. I don't want anybody to feel like that's what you have to do just because it looks good or it sounds good or you think that's what you need to do. High school, it's about finding your interests and what you want to pursue afterwards. And I think that serves most kids better than trying to do everything, finding those things that you're passionate about. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I'm getting behind in here. Shane.
Mr. Rich,
yeah.
I had a question directly to what you were just speaking about. What is the benefit of earning an honors diploma then? Like, how does that benefit kids other than to just say they got it?
Go ahead, Shane.
It really is just a distinction that goes with them to college and might help them get into different programs in college or a specific college that they're interested in. So if you're wanting to go after that, that's why you might want to do it.
Yeah.
Look for a way to distinguish yourself from somebody else to get into a specific college.
Yeah, saying I'm one of 6 in my high school that did this. I mean, plus, the education that goes along with that.
Correct. So we were going to go to that honors first, and then the medicine. You want to when the students are looking at their 4-year plan, Mr. Rich has helped them do that. They've looked for classes that if they actually go to the college that they want to go to, they look at what that college is recommending that the students should take, and they back it up then and look to see what classes they should take in high school. You want to add to that, Mr. Rich?
No, I was trying to pull up some of the 4-year plan stuff on here. A lot of people get tied up on that 4-year plan. When we do that in November, if you've seen that as an 8th grader, those are pretty generalized plans. Our whole point when we're doing that 4-year plan that we talked about earlier is giving kids an idea of how high school works, how credits work, what kind of classes you're going to take. I do list all the advanced classes so kids can kind of see what those pathways are. We talk about the difference between just basic college or high school graduation requirements versus what most colleges are looking for. Later in the year, we'll talk about colleges, the many different types of post-secondary education, from trade schools to 4-year colleges to community colleges, things like that. So it's really pretty basic. And when you go into 9th grade, things are still pretty prescribed. You have like regular advanced classes in 9th grade for the core classes. So there's not a lot of mistake that you can make even going into 9th grade. You're not going to make any decision as far as, oh, I took this class and now I'm off the rails and I can't ever get to where else I'm going to be. So the 4-year plan is a tool that's meant to be pretty general and give kids an idea, basic understanding of how college or high school is going to work.
So another question was about the debate opportunities at Valley High School. Of course, Valley High School has one of the best debate teams in the country. And so if you take debate, it counts as your speech. Every student, every high school student has to take speech. And so that could count as it. There's several other options that you could take instead of a regular speech class.
Yeah, so if you take a year of debate in high school, that year of debate will count for the speech credit. Now, speech is only a semester-long class, so that's not a shortcut to getting speech. It's actually a lot more intense than just doing the speech class, which is why it also counts for that. But nothing you do in 7th or 8th grade, if you do the debate club in 7th and 8th grade, you're not getting high school credit.
Then another question in the chat was about typing class, and I think all we can say is amen. And they're supposed to have had typing through elementary school, and so we take them where they're at, and we do offer at different times during Encore opportunities for students to get on and work on their typing. So there's all kinds of free typing programs out there. We give them some time and access to that, and they can do that at home too. What percentage of students take the advanced classes, Mr. Rich?
I would say we usually have one section on each team, and we have 5 sections of the classes, so maybe a fifth of students.
Yeah.
And even within that, I guess that number would be lower than a fifth because a lot of those kids are taking multiple. So less than a fifth of students would take advanced classes. Does that sound right, Shane? I mean, I'm not sure my reasoning lines up completely.
No, that's about right. And some take 1, some take 2, some take all 3, some take all 4. And then some also take high school Spanish too, Spanish 1 on top of that.
Yeah, I talked about that Spanish class earlier. That's the one world foreign language that we offer in 8th grade. It is for a high school Spanish 1 class. So whether you take that as a senior or a junior or an 8th grader, it's Spanish 1. With that being said, it does also receive high school credit for that class. So if you're taking Spanish in 8th grade, you are going to receive high school credit. Pro and con to that, again, factors into your GPA, but it's a way to get a jump start on some of those classes. And you do not have to have taken 7th grade Spanish in order to take 8th grade Spanish. The high school graduation requirements for 2025, the only thing I know of that's been new in the last few years as far as an additional requirement is the health class that they've added. They've also kind of redefined some things that were basically happening anyway. Like now you have to take biology and chemistry as part of the science classes, whereas before I think it said 2 lab classes. Math, you have to get through algebra 2, whereas before I think it said 3 years of math. But Shane, do you know of any other changes for 2025 off the top of your head?
Those are the ones that I'm aware of also. Any other questions at any level? Okay, so this kind of ends our time with the counselors. So thank you very much, Mr. Rich and Mrs. Cunningham, for joining us. And feel free to reach out to them on email or to call them if you have more questions that are just related to your son or daughter. So thank you both. And then I think
I have a general question.
sure.
Oh, yeah, I have a general question. It's okay to ask now that the counselor part is done.
Yeah, so this is
I've been
time for you to ask me any question. Yes, go.
Perfect. I know I heard a little bit of discussion at the district with school resource officers over the summer, and then I've heard a little bit more lately. Can you speak to Officer Joe and his role at Indian Hills and speak to that a little bit?
Yes, one of the 5 points that our Director of Equity and Inclusion is working on is to review school resource officers and their use in the school. In some parts of the country, it's seen as school resource officers are seen as there to be punitive and to start that pathway to basically to prison. That's not what we're trying to do here. I think they really just want to do a good review. I can tell you, we've had a school resource officer. I think this is our 4th year. So Officer Joe Nielsen was our school resource officer for the first 3 years, and then Officer Chris Brown is our school resource officer now. And they rotate every 3 years on purpose. They have to go to special school to be a school resource officer. They have to take classes. But the purpose that we wanted one in the city of Clive is we always had one officer that came to work with us, but they weren't a school resource officer. A school resource officer is employed by the district for 50% of their salary. And so that person is an employee of West Des Moines Schools and an employee of the city of Clive. In this case, the West Des Moines are employees of the city of West Des Moines. We started to see a need for many reasons, but the impetus for us to go to before the Clive Council was really the shootings that happened in Urbandale and Des Moines, where police officers were shot. At that point, we really realized that there needs to be an opportunity for students to have relationships with police officers and see them as people that they can go to and as people that are there for them, and to develop relationships within the community. And so the chief, Clive chief, and I went before the city council and talked with them. We worked with our superintendent and we developed a plan. And so luckily that was able to move forward. I can tell you that our 3 goals at Indian Hills, and this our school resource officer also serves Crestview and then one elementary in the Waukee schools. So is to, number 1 is all about relationships. Our first goal is relationships, relationships, relationships. So we have the school resource officer go into classes, they meet kids in the hallway, they're talking to kids, they're getting to know them, they're following them on their Twitter. They're another piece is we have a lot of students that are refugees, and so the school resource officer goes in and talks with them and lets them know how the police operate in the United States as opposed to how it might operate in some other countries. And the relationships there have been tremendous, where students start to come around and talk with Officer Brown and Officer Joe before him. And then they also start to talk to let them know when something's happening. If there's something in the building that shouldn't be there, if there's a couple students that are having trouble, and they use the officer to help them negotiate that, and it's not punitive. So our first goal is relationships and getting to know students and to build those so that they can go to a police officer and know them and trust them. The second is about education as our second big goal. So the officers work with us in our Tiger Time curriculum. They develop some lessons. They co-teach with me often in the lessons. We just did a digital citizenship lesson together, and we have them work with the drugs and alcohol unit. We have them join Tiger Time quite often and join discussions and circles. So it's about education is our second goal. And then our third goal is general protection. So having a school resource officer there sends a message that there is an officer, and so don't bring things that you shouldn't bring. Don't come into our building. That we have somebody here. So it's just really, it's that piece. But then it's also helping us when there is a student who's broken the law, and we work with them so that it doesn't continue, not to find a way to send them, further down the court system. Now, there's sometimes, very rarely, that a student does need the interventions of the courts because there are no other options. It is very hard to get students help, and that sometimes is our only option. And it really is about getting the student and the family help. And it's, again, very rare. Most of the time, they are sitting down with the student, having a conversation about the consequences of the action and where that could lead them in legal problems. And our goal is to not head that way. So we feel, we did have an independent reviewer come in and look at what we're doing with the city of Clive, and we received one of the highest rankings, the highest ranking that you can get for a school resource officer working with schools. And that's what we want. That is our intent. And we feel very, very good and very satisfied with our relationship, not only with our school resource officer, but the city of Clive and all of their services. Remember the city council was talking about, well, if we're providing this for everybody in West Des Moines, there's kids who don't live in West Des Moines, then why should we do that? And I said, because West Des Moines is covering your students when they're going to West Des Moines schools, when they're going to Valley and other places. And they really bought into that. So I very much appreciate about the city council and the chief. I rambled there for a while. Any other questions for me? Questions about the school resource officer, questions in general. Parent-teacher conferences coming up. Make sure you get signed up. If you want to talk to a teacher, do that. If you just want something quick, you can email them for sure or call them. Then that day we will have school on Wednesday, and then so next Wednesday we'll have school. Then we have parent-teacher conferences after school until 7. Then we have an asynchronous day on Thursday. So students will have homework that they need to complete for each class. They have to complete it in order to show their attendance. And so there may be a video or some reading for them to do. Then they'll have a quiz of some sort or some sort of task that they need to complete. In completing that task, that is how they show that they attended. Now, some students on Wednesday, when they get out of school early, may go in and knock out all the homework for Thursday. That's fine. It's asynchronous whenever they want to do it. Other times they may want to do it later that night on Wednesday. They may get up whenever they get up on Thursday and knock it out. They need to have the homework done before the end of the school day at 2:35 because the teachers have to take attendance after that before 4 o'clock. And so I think I sent that out. But just so you kind of know how the asynchronous day works. There's lots of different ways the kids can show that they participated in that class for the day. Any other questions? All right, another topic I'll bring up then, and you can put it in the chat. We do have ISASP coming up. That's our state testing. And so that will be in April, and we're trying to work on the schedule right now. We also know that any students who are online, we need to figure out how we can bring them into a building somewhere in West Des Moines to take that ISASP test. So so just to kind of know that for that testing, we're going to need all students. Now, what we're thinking about doing is we're looking at several different options. We may have students come in on April 3rd and April 26th, which are professional development days, and there are no other students in the building. That way we can social distance all of them while they're here. We're looking at some options where we test in the building with the in-person students, and the online students go to another building and join the test virtually, but in another building where there has to be a certified teacher observing and proctoring that test. So we're trying to work that all out. 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. I don't know. I have not talked with Mr. Bornes. I don't know what's going on with it. I think if they feel like we have enough vaccines and people can fly, that they'll do it. But I don't know right now. Can parents go through training to be a certified teacher if they don't want their kids in the building? I don't think so. You have to be certified through the Board of Educational Examiners, and you have to be hired in the district. So you know, the regular teacher has to be the one that's proctoring the test. And the only exception to that is a long-term sub. So a teacher's gone for more than 2 weeks and there's a long-term sub in there, then they have a way to be certified. There is specific training we have to go through in addition to being a certified teacher. There will be a math test that will be an hour long that we give them 90 minutes. There will be a reading test that's a 60-minute test that we give them 90 minutes. 8th graders only have a science test that's a 60-minute test that we give them 90 minutes for. And then there's a writing section of the test that is takes them 2 hours to complete. So that is the big one, and is what is difficult for scheduling for us. So we're trying to look to do it over the online kids over 2 days. Possibly if they do it at the same time we do, we're trying to figure out how to do it over 3 days, but there are some options that are over 4 days. We're trying to figure it out. That's all I can say. Junior high does not do the COGAT testing or the cognitive ability testing. That's usually stops after elementary. Okay. Any other questions?
I'll just let everybody know our next meeting is going to be on April 15th. So we appreciate everybody coming, and we appreciate your time to answer all our questions. And I think this was a great meeting.
I have one more chat that's just directly I'll respond to in just a second, just for that person. But otherwise, yeah, thank you, everybody. Feel free to reach out to us. We appreciate you coming. We love that so many people have joined.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.